My guest today is Belgium's first National Drugs Commissioner, Inne van Weermes. She has taken on the role at a time when a spate of drug-related shootings is rocking the country's capital, Brussels, and its main port in Antwerp has become the major gateway to cocaine entering Europe. Drugs arriving here are not only destined for the Belgian market, much of it is transported illegally to other European countries, making this more than just Belgium's problem. Commissioner, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So we're in Brussels, and in this city, as well as in Belgium's second city, Antwerp, we've seen a recent uptick in drug-related violence on our streets. Is the Belgian government taking enough measures to tackle this problem?
Well, at least there is a sense of urgency and the awareness is high to tackle this problem. The appointment of a national drug commissioner and his agency is, of course, an important step towards developing a national and even an international strategy to tackle this crime.
And one of the solutions that the new government is putting on the table is putting Belgian soldiers on the streets as early as April next year. Do you support that move? It's quite controversial here.
Well, at least it is a measure among a lot of other measures that have been taken. For us, it is important to develop not only a clear approach, but also a hold and a build approach. We were inspired by UK to develop this methodology. I think it is important that in a first clear phases, we take over the streets again, and we show to the citizens that the government is there and that we are ready and that we are taking control and that we are not losing control. Of course, we cannot expect from military in the streets that they will solve the root causes of this problem. We know that we have to develop an educational policy, a poverty policy. We need to get people back to work.
Just to clarify, does that mean that you've lost control in some parts of the city?
Some people have the idea that there is some kind of loss of control, which is not the case. Police are working on that, magistrates are working on that, but we cannot deny that there is an impact on the security and safety feelings of people living in those areas.
Now, an investigating judge in the city of Antwerp said very recently in October that Belgium is a narco state. Do you agree?
What she said actually was that Belgium should not become a narco state. And I think that's a very important difference. We are not a narco state, but we really have to undertake action to prevent that we become a narco state. Because Europol pointed out also recently that corruption is a main concern. There is a lot of money going on in this criminal world, and it's with this money that people are convinced to work with criminals, and that is when we don't tackle the business model, then we are having a serious risk to develop towards a narco state.
The investigating judge in question who put out this warning had to go into hiding. There have been a former justice minister as well who has been at risk tackling these gangs and these structures. Do you feel safe doing this job?
Well, we cannot be naive. The enemy we're facing doesn't have any kind of values or ethical standards, so we have to be aware of a security and a safety risk, of course. But this cannot make us not handle and not implement the policy that we should implement. And I think this organized crime has a lot of faces and aspects, but only has one heart, I would say, and the center of gravity really is the money. These are the criminal assets. So I think the fact that they are getting nervous is because we are just focusing on their criminal assets, because that's really their reason of existing.
I'm wondering, we have some very radical proposals coming on the table from the US president, for example, Donald Trump, targeting boats in the Caribbean Sea. Is that something that authorities here in Europe need to contemplate?
Well, the criminal organizations, cocaine traffic is a very complex problem, so it only deserves and demands complexity in our answers. We have to know where the new routes are going to be able to put barriers in all logistic chains. Because if we tackle the logistic chains, the logistics that they are abusing to put up their business, we are really causing these criminal organizations serious difficulties, because even if they change products, whether they are importing cocaine or precursors to fabric synthetic synthetical drugs, they are all coming through the same logistic chains.
And to do that, I'm assuming that international work is very important and working with European partners. Do we need more cooperation at the European level? Is Brussels, in the sense of the EU institutions, doing enough to support?
Well, we are in close contact with the EU Commission, of course, and we collaborate also to the EU strategy. We consider it as a global problem. We need to tackle it on a global level and on a local level on the same time. Where we need more pressure, I think, from the European institutions, it's really to put these big companies under pressure that are bringing their encrypted communication tools, for example, to our market, to force them to collaborate with law enforcement. These are things that we can do on a European level. Same thing is to implement the ISPS codes. These are the security measures that are taken in the ports to avoid terrorist attacks, but we have to enlarge them towards organized crime. And these are all steps that need to be taken on a European level, and I know that people are really working on that.
So when you say encrypted communication services, we're talking about things like Telegram,
Signal, and all these kind of tools. They are really facilitating not only legal communication but also illegal communication. We see that criminal organizations are really taking advantage of the fact that these companies are not very keen on collaborating with law enforcement, and if we accept that there is like a digital space where these criminals can talk freely, we are really losing our freedom at the end.
I know that you are a mum yourself and that you also worked as a juvenile prosecutor. Children are also at risk in all of this. When it comes to the situation in Belgium, what do you see as the biggest risks when it comes to children, both in terms of consumption, but also when it comes to them being recruited into criminal gangs and so on?
Children are at risk because we see that mental health is really an issue, so I think we have to invest in mental health and in resilience. If we are managing towards schools, sports, with the parents to create a resilient generation, then they are resilient for all kinds of problems and also recruitment by criminal organizations. On the other hand, we cannot be naive. I'm very concerned, for example, about illegal vapes. We see that the seizures that we've done of illegal refill capsules for vapes, that they are more than 80% is containing synthetical opioids, and they don't have a specific smell or color, and criminal organizations are abusing these this whole logistic network of selling points of these vapes. So I'm very happy that our Minister of Public Health took the decisions that the tastes, these cherry tastes and everything of vapes will be forbidden soonly, because criminal organizations are taking advantage of that to introduce synthetic opioids to very young children. So we really have to be aware that everything can be abused by criminal organizations. Same thing, it's about social media. We really have to be present on these social media platforms to bring a counter narrative. In Brussels, a lot of children, youngsters, complain that they don't find a student job, that they don't find a place for a traineeship. I really think we have to offer them these chances to get a degree in school, because if we don't do this as private and public partners in a big city as Brussels, criminal organizations will offer them a criminal career.
This issue of the synthetic drugs being introduced in vapes, this is very serious. What are the risks to our children?
Well, the risk is that they will be addicted on a very young age, that their brain will not develop the way it should be. These are serious health risks, and we need to protect them from that by taking measures against all these logistic chain issues that are abused for synthetic drugs. And we see that Belgium, together with the Netherlands, is an important production country of synthetic drugs, and they are fabricated based based on products, precursors, chemicals that are coming from China and India mainly. They have a legal purpose. We have a strong petrochemical industry, we have a strong pharmaceutical industry, but they are misused, and they are used for the fabrics of syntheticals. And also Europe needs to think about a way to avoid that these chemicals are entering our territory.
Finally, Commissioner, what we're referencing here, synthetic drugs, things like fentanyl, which we've seen really skyrocket in the US, in Canada, North America. Are we immune to this problem in Belgium, in Europe, or could we also face the same kind of situation as they're facing over the Atlantic?
Well, we have very close contacts with DEA, for example, and the question is not if we will have fentanyl, but the question is when will we see fentanyl. And I'm convinced that we will see fentanyl in a different way than in US, because our healthcare system, etc., is different. But we see that criminal organizations might use fentanyl to mix it with cocaine, for example, and then fentanyl is becoming an addiction accelerator, for example. The craving period is shorter, so people will be demanding for more cocaine in a shorter time. It's a bit like sweets in nutrition. They will use fentanyl in drugs that are already used on the European territory. So that is why we are very aware and supporting the European awareness system, for example.
And finally, to close off, is this with the fentanyl happening currently in Belgium?
In Belgium, not yet, but of course I can base myself only on what we see, and we don't see everything for sure, but we don't have a fentanyl issue as we have it in US, but it is entering Europe for sure.
Commissioner, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.